Hello YouTube, D-Decken here, and what you're seeing on my screen is it's not a hoax, it's not edited in any sort of way. I have achieved dual level max for the 2019 April 2019 KC Cup. Now, I'm kind of doing this video a little unscripted, so humor me a little bit. Now, the deck I used for this event was a deck I hadn't used prior to this event. And what I mean by that is for a long time, I was using OG Ancient Gears, like original Ancient Gears before Gatling Dragon a long time ago, with Crowler, with the mech skill. Now, obviously, I leveled up Crowler to level 45, and I stopped using that deck. So then I switched over to Pegasus, and with Pegasus, I decided to use Mind Scan Gladiator Beast, because with Gladiator Beast, I could pop some cards, and I was using that for the longest time. Well, coincidentally, I had leveled maxed him up. So I had to decide, what was my, next good deck going to be. Everyone's using Ancient Gear. I'm not going to use Ancient Gear with another character. I just was using Gladiator Beast a lot the entire time. I'm not going to use Gladiator Beast anymore. So what deck am I going to use? So after, considering a lot of, viable decks, and I thought I saw, one person use it against me, I'm like, screw it, I'll use Aliens. So, yes, I completed the entire KC Cup with Aliens, and this is the deck I used. Now, this is a very straightforward, very free-to-play version of the deck, and, so going over this deck, throughout the event, the only major changes I actually made was, I added the Skullmeisters in after Duel Level 15, and before that, they were an extra copy of Telepath and an extra copy of, Gray. So, the idea behind this deck was, the big three. The big three is the kind of the major threat in this KC Cup, which is 6 Sams with Shien. There's Ancient Gear with Gatling Dragon, and then there's also Ubel. Those were the three big contenders to kind of go against. And ideally, this deck should have a decent matchup against one of them, and that's Ancient Gear, because what you can do is you can essentially put a counter on Gatling Dragon somehow, and then take it with Brainwashing Beam. Now, out of the ways to put a counter on Gatling Dragon, that's literally Alien Kid or A-Cell. And that, unfortunately, did not come up a lot. It did come up during my dual level max, and I'll probably try to show that up. But it didn't come up a lot, unfortunately. So there are times I just didn't win against Ancient Gear. But ideally, it's Treacherous Trap Hole is meant to deal with 2 Gatling Dragons on the field. But unfortunately, when they attack simultaneously, that doesn't work. So it's supposed to be you, at the start of the battle phase, you do yourself then. I faced Ancient Gear before. I know how they work. But, half the time that didn't work. 6 Sam I actually had a lot easier time with. But I still struggled here and there. Not with Shien. The fun thing about Shien is when to use your card effects. Because obviously, if you only have one card and you're doing one thing, Shien's just going to negate it, so there's no point of playing it. But there were times when I had I had Treacherous Trap Hole and a Brainwashing Beam set, or I had 2 A-Cells for some reason. So I activate the one A-Cell, Shien goes to negate, and I activate the second A-Cell, and just, ran over Shien or brainwashed it. There was that sort of interaction. And then, again, there was one game I faced literally an hour ago or so, where I had, again, Brainwashing Beam and Treacherous, and I ran my Alien Warrior into the Shien, just put 2 counters on it, and I literally just faked him out with the Brainwashing Beam. Shien negates, activate Treacherous, because Brainwashing Beam hadn't hit the graveyard at that point, and he had the, with 6 Sams, Shien is a threat, but the bigger threat is actually, the Bouncer, the banish 2 from the graveyard to bounce a card. That's actually more big of a threat. So he tried to banish 2 from graveyard to bounce a Shien, thinking that his level 1 monster would negate Treacherous because it's only targeting the Bouncer now. But that was no longer the case, because it still destroyed it. So, I'm sorry, I'm very excited at the moment. As for Ubel was very hit or miss. Ubel was very hit or miss. It was whether or not I could either steal Ubel and run over it, or get rid of Ubel somehow. That... Ubel was never the fun matchup, but it was kind of hit or miss whether or not I could beat Ubel. So, talking about this deck. The deck is more or less straightforward. The two alien overlords are there just to have be able to summon the big monster when I need to, and then also the case of whether like this came up a couple times where I could just banish send the one overlord with A cell just to add the other overlord and then summon and go attack over. The alien warrior is definitely good, but is kind of the main way of putting counters on. Like A cell is should be the main way, but warrior if you draw him, he's your first access. You don't draw A cell, he's the only way. The reason I'm only playing one Alien Kid and one Telepath, because, like I said, I was playing two Telepaths at the beginning of the event, but I switched over to one Telepath because there were games where I was just drawing two Telepaths and not having a way to put A counters on, like I mentioned. So it's like he was kind of a 1600 beater that, in an event where there was a lot of 1700 beaters and 1800 beaters, like, there was no actual way of beating over things with just Telepath. So, in other words, Telepath and Alien Kid were kind of tech cards. Like... like there was many situations where if I did not need a pop back row, I would use A cell to send Telepath, or if my opponent did all his special summons already, there was no point of Alien Kid, so I would use A cell to send Alien Kid. Now, Alien Gray and Junk Synchron. Yes, I'm using Junk Synchron and one Alien Gray specifically for Armades, and Armades came up a couple times and it was awesome. But the idea with one A cell and one Gray and one Junk Synchron is like I could. At any given point, I could just use A cell to send Alien. If I have Junk Synchron and A cell, I can activate the A cell to send Gray to then summon Junk Synchron to resummon Gray, and then just go into Armades. Like, now the reason I'm only running the reason I'm only running one Junk Synchron is because I only have one Junk Synchron because I'm a free-to-play player. Like, ideally, if you can run multiple Junk Synchron, that's awesome. But the reason I'm only running one Gray is in the kind of the same vein as Alien Kid and Telepath. Like, there were situations where, like, it's too late in the game to draw Gray and have it be effective. So if I can just send that if I could send it with A cell to properly deal with my monster, because Gray specifically puts two counters when using it with A cell. Like, A cell, send Gray, that's two counters. I can then remove those two counters for Overlord and then just go from there. It's just perfect numbers right there, where I don't need to send a big beater for A cell. With A cell, I don't need to send a big high-level monster and get rid of it, where I can just send Gray and have it deal with it. But the real MVP of this deck, and the funniest card in this deck, definitely have to be Evil Dragon at Anenta. This was essentially the MVP card of this deck, because what this card does is at any given point, it force banishes all reptiles on the field in the graveyard, and it summons itself with 600 attack times the number of aliens you banished, times the number of reptiles you banished, which are essentially the aliens of the deck. So the funny thing about this card, is that there were times where I would have just one alien in the graveyard, whether that was just Warrior from the previous turn, or like a little alien I sacrificed for the fun of it, and I would just summon Evil Dragon Antenna and just sit on it. Like, I would use I'd use Econ or A cell for brainwashing to protect it, and then just start popping things. Like, I faced off against a lot of Weevil players. I don't know why, there was just Weevil players everywhere with Parasite. And every single time, except one, I would literally just summon Antenna and just sit on it. I would just sit on it and just start popping, like, any monster that he would summon, I'd just pop that right away. And if he didn't summon any more monsters, like, I would just start popping his back row. Because, like, they were playing Kinetic Soldier Helmet. That's all they were playing. Just Kinetic Soldier Helmet, okay, fine. I summon Antenna and start popping his monsters. If he had one monster and I had Treacherous, I would just start popping the back row. He summoned the second monster, I just pop it. Then I pop both his monsters. Like, it was awesome. Like, it was just straight awesome. There were times I got to bluff a little bit with Treacherous, like, while I'm talking, let me just, darn it. Okay, I didn't mean to there was one or two more things I wanted to talk about first, but, like, it was just awesome. The character I used with Bakura, and the skill I used with Tether of the Feet. Now, to be 100% honest, the character didn't matter, and Tether of the Feet kinda didn't matter. Like, realistically, Tether of the Feet, okay, well, so like I was saying, I used, the longest time I had Crowler for OG Ancient Gear, and then I used, Pegasus with Mind Scan for Gladiator Beast. So, I wanted to use a character that I didn't really played a lot, so I used Bakura. And I didn't really have a serious deck on him, so I just gave him Alien. And at the time, I didn't have any sort of I didn't have his actual skills. So I literally have Tether to Feet, and that was it. So I just equipped him with Tether to Feet and just went from there. And as you can see, throughout the Casey Cup, I gained a whole bunch of new skills. Like, I gained Farewell Fiend, Destiny Board, Compass, like, he got Balanced, level maxed. I thought I got, Fiend Farewell. Like, I got a bunch of new skills throughout the event for him. But, I didn't have a serious deck, so I just picked Tether to Feet, and in all honesty, Tether to Feet was just kind of a funny skill. Like, I would just, like, mill off certain cards, just to mill off certain cards. Like, it would make my opponent's deck smaller and put a little bit more pressure on them. It was kind of funny. Against the Destiny Hero player, I sent off a Mash Change, against random decks, I was able to send off Dimensional Prison. Against Ancient Gear players, I sent off Gear Talon randomly. Like, the only time that it really did screw me over was Dinosaur and, Laval. Because the Laval trap that, like, you banish all the Lavals and you pop things on the field. Like, I used Tether to Feet, I force-sent him a Laval, and then he activated a trap, having more targets to pop my cards. Fine. Against Dinosaur, like, I accidentally send off an extra trap monster that he can revive, Paleozoic. So he activated a trap, he revived it, he was able to pop more things, and so against Dinosaur and Laval, don't use the skill, but otherwise in every other matchup, it was just kind of a fun skill. In terms of the extra deck, every card in the extra deck except Stardust, I essentially used. Like, there was instances where I summoned Lightning Warrior just to start putting some extra pressure and extra damage on my opponent. There was one matchup against Destiny Hero where, like, I summoned Junk Synchron, I revived my Gray, and he had his Celestial on the field, so he activated, Econ. Well, no, he activated, Kedia to set my Gray for whatever reason. So I had an Econ, so I Econ took his Celestial, and I just made Junk Berserker. And there were times where I just made Junk Berserker just to pop defense cards. So he came up. Armades, of course, was the main monster I summoned. And ironically, I did summon Giga Castle, like Junk Synchron plus Overlord. Just 31 beater, just start poking. Like, it was a funny instance. Stardust is in this deck for the sole purpose of situations where I would have Spear Kribo on my graveyard only. So Junk Synchron plus Spear Kribo plus a level 4, just to make Stardust Dragon. Like, that was the only purpose for Stardust. Like, that and Stardust can kind of counter Yubel, but I can't summon Stardust successfully with against Yubel, so it's kind of a unneeded card in the deck. Like the only card on the extra deck I would actually want is what's it called? Balmond. Balmond I would put in this extra deck but in a heartbeat, because, like, the one deck I had the serious problem against was Sphinx. Like, Sphinx would come out of nowhere and just, like, this entire deck targets. So there's really no way, and Sphinx just goes fast. So there's no way to really stop Sphinx once they're moving, in other words. Like, Treacherous targets, A-Cell targets, Triangle targets, Econ targets. Like, everything targets in this deck. So there was no actual way to be able to, like, make a strong enough board in one turn against Sphinx, where Sphinx is just summoning a bigger board just running me over. So, I do have replays. I wouldn't mind showing them off, like, in the next day or so. But otherwise, that was the deck. That was the Casey Cup April 2019. What deck deck are you using in the Casey Cup? Have you gotten Duel level max? And what crazy decks have you seen in the Casey Cup? Let me know in the comments, and have a good day.